suppose in a nutshell, I do software. So, I've been a software developer practically from my entire life, it feels like. Like my first paid job, believe it or not, was back in 1982, the summer before I went to college. Professionally, I do consulting and training with the goal of enabling companies to accelerate software delivery through better architecture. And quite often that it's actually by using the microservice architecture. So I think it's fair to say that the world is kind of a crazy place. More specifically, it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. In order to thrive in this world, organizations, businesses need to be much more nimble. They need to be able to quickly respond to new competitors. Also, it's quite common for users to not really know what they want, or for companies to not really know what their customers want. And so in order to produce successful products and services, there's a need for a lot of experimentation. And so that actually changes how you deliver software. So rather than large infrequent releases, organizations need to adopt what is known as fast flow. And that's where there's a continuous stream of changes flowing literally from developers' laptops through an automated deployment pipeline into production. That means changes are flowing one way, and then feedback from users about both the technical decisions you've made and the product design features you've made are flowing back into the development team, so you can quickly learn. You can run experiments to validate your hypotheses about what customers need, and then you can course correct. And ultimately, that enables the organization to be successful. So that's the concept of fast flow and why it's important. From a sort of architectural point of view, I don't exactly think about to explicitly consider the strategic vision. That sort of drives, to me, it sounds like it drives product features, right? Whereas from my perspective, it's like, well, we're not really sure what the customers need. We have, say, requirements, but they are really just guesses. They're hypotheses about what customers need. And we just need to experiment, try something, get feedback, and then iterate on it. So that's sort of how I view the world, which is a little lower level from this strategic vision thing that you speak of. So in order to do fast flow, an organization actually needs three things. So one is they need to adopt DevOps as defined by the DevOps handbook. So that's the process, the way of working. They also need to adopt team topologies, which is a set of patterns about how to structure an organization for fast flow. And then they need an architecture that enables those two things, which is basically an architecture that supports kind of rapid change so that you can quickly make changes, quickly deploy those changes into production to get feedback to course correct. So you have those three things: DevOps, team topologies, and architecture. And I talk about all three, but by far my focus is on architecture, on how to pick a suitable architecture that enables your organization to practice fast flow. So in terms of concretely, what do I do? So one half of what I do is workshops, basically on the microservice architecture. Or perhaps if you take a step back, on the concept of architecting for fast flow, which sometimes involves the monolithic architecture, other times requires a microservice architecture. So it's like, okay, which one? So kind of teaching people how to make the decision between the two. And then if they go the microservice architecture route, how to design an effective microservice architecture. So I do training around that. And then I also do consulting, which might mean, okay, let's look at your monolith, understand it, or sort of understand the obstacles that you are currently experiencing that are getting in the way of fast flow. And so understand your monolithic architecture, figure out a strategy for refactoring it to a microservice architecture. Or you already have a microservice architecture. Let's understand the problems that you're having with it, both from your own perspective and then also from my perspective, and then identify ways to actually improve the architecture. I mean, beyond just sort of being a good architect, right? I mean, I would say it obviously does require knowledge of DevOps as defined by the DevOps handbook, right? And the reason I keep saying as defined by the DevOps handbook is that there's a lot of confusion in the community about the term DevOps. And in some organizations, it's a job title, DevOps engineer, which is an incorrect use of the term, right? So DevOps is a set of principles and practices for delivering software rapidly, frequently, and reliably. And it's well documented by the DevOps handbook. Yeah, and then architects need to have a good understanding of team topologies as well, right? Because that's how you structure the organization. And then they also obviously need to be competent architects. So you need to have a thorough understanding of concepts like the modular monolith. You need to have a thorough understanding of the microservice architecture. And then I think most importantly, you need to have internalized a good technical decision-making process. Because I think, in a sense, one of the problems that a lot of organizations get into is they don't think things through, because every technology has trade-offs, right? The monolithic architecture is not a silver bullet. The microservice architecture is not a silver bullet. Each one of them has benefits and drawbacks that make them applicable to a particular situation and not applicable to other situations. And so you need to properly understand the trade-offs involved in order to figure out the right architecture. And literally almost every every architectural decision that you must make involves multiple possible solutions, each with their own respective trade-offs. And so you need to be able to rigorously work through all of these architecture and design problems and make sort of rational choices. And I think there's not enough of that being done today. Well, it so happens that there are these DORA metrics. So DORA, the DORA organization, is the one that sort of is doing a lot of the research, the science behind DevOps, and with all of the findings to justify why DevOps is a good thing. And so there are these DORA metrics, which are essentially measures of fast flow. So one metric is deployment frequency. So how often is the organization deploying changes into production? So you could measure that, and the unit could be so many deployments per developer per day, and ideally it should be greater than 1. And then there's also lead time, which is the time from the developer doing a Git push, so getting their changes into a Git repository, to those changes being deployed in production. And ideally that should be 15 minutes or, certainly under an hour. We have an organization where every developer is doing a Git push, and then those changes are very rapidly getting deployed into production. So you're most certainly moving fast. But then the other aspect is reliability. And there's two metrics. One is change failure rate, which is how frequently do changes cause production outages or production problems? And obviously that metric should be really, really low. And then also, if there is a production problem, how quickly can you recover from it? And that should be really fast. And it turns out that if you look at high-performing organizations, they move very fast without breaking things. So it's fast and reliable, which is perhaps counterintuitive. People think, oh, we must go slowly in order to not break things. But it turns out that actually the opposite is true. So fast flow also equals reliable flow, which is another key point to make, is that there's plenty of evidence to say that fast flow and more generally high-performance software delivery correlates with business success as well, because you're able to quickly iterate and deliver products and services that customers need. So obviously a key question is, how do architects kind of learn the skills that they need in order to be successful? And I think on the one hand, experience obviously helps, right? Actually having done it enough times. But I would also say, given that I'm at an architecture conference, coming to conferences like this, listening to speakers, who are basically presenting state-of-the-art architectural topics, and then all of the hallway conversations that also happen at conferences, is incredibly valuable. So I would certainly recommend that people come to this conference.